Hello everybody. Today I'm making this video to present some details on a project that I've been working on. My project is called View of the Hebrews, a mod for the game Europa Universalis 4. The mod is based on the events, characters, and places described in the Book of Mormon, which is the primary holy book of the Latter-day Saint movement, written in 1830 by its founder Joseph Smith. It claims that the Native Americans are a lost tribe of Jews who are descended from a family which came to America from Jerusalem around 600 BC, and that it contains their history and the words of the prophets who were sent to speak to them. My project is to modify Europa Universalis, or EU4, to include some of these events, characters, and places, and to make them playable in the game. EU4 is a map-based grand strategy RPG which allows you to rule any country existing in the starting date 1444 and manage its economy, diplomacy, military, and administration. At your disposal are tables of numbers and factors which tell you how your country is doing, and an array of tools that allow you to develop your country and meet its goals. Taking place from 1444 to 1821, the game immerses you in the history of the world through that time, allowing you to react to the development of colonialism, religious upheavals, the globalization of trade, and the age of revolutions in the late game. It is rich with historically based mechanics and scenarios that keep the game interesting. I've been playing the game for around 3 years, and I've become decently familiar with how it works. I've done a bit of modding for it myself, both for this mod and for other smaller mods that I've made for myself. Simplifying some of its events that are relevant to this mod, in the Book of Mormon, a man named Lehi takes his family out of Jerusalem around 600 BC during the reign of Zedekiah, and they sail to the Americas by God's command. His sons form two different nations of people. The first are the Nephites, who build settled cities in which God chooses to communicate with. The second are the Lamanites, who are cursed to have dark skin so that the Nephites will not breed with them due to their rebellion against God, and initially they resemble a more nomadic and mobile people. After some time, around 279 BC, the Nephites disobey the prophets of God, and the Lamanites are sent to destroy them. God leads a small group of those who escape to Zarahemla, a nation founded by the Mulekites, who also left Jerusalem around the same time that Lehi did. The Nephites join their nation, and the more dense details of the history of the Nephites cover the period of the time that they are there. Zarahemla changes from a monarchy to a system resembling a republic, has various wars with the Lamanites, and struggles against armed uprisings and heretical preachers. As that nation again descends into unbelief, they are again destroyed around 32 AD, and Jesus Christ visits the survivors after he is resurrected and founds a reformed version of their church. The whole of the people experience another long period of righteousness, then decay again, and then are finally all destroyed, leaving only Lamanites in the land by 421 AD. The point of this mod is to implement details and settings from the book into the game, but first a couple of concerns need to be addressed. Because of the over 1,000-year time gap between the game and the book, European nations begin to intrude on the Americas early on in this game, but I need the nations of the mod to be isolated. This can be solved by setting a national modifier to all nations which gain the ability to colonize and neutralize their ability to build overseas settlements. Also, actual Native American entities exist around the area that I have designated for this mod, and to keep the nations isolated, they will have to be removed from the game. Even though the book says that they are alone in the land that they arrive to, I'll only remove the Native Americans in the eastern part of North America, as the rest are far enough away that they won't inhibit the interactions of the new nations. With that out of the way, I will describe the locations that I have chosen for this mod to take place in. There is no clear geography or set location where the events of the book are said to have taken place, and the church does not endorse any one view of it. Views range from encompassing the whole of both American continents and all the islands of the Pacific to perhaps a geographic area so small that the many people described could have avoided archaeological detection. For my purposes, I have placed the location of the events in the northeast United States, the area which Joseph Smith would have been familiar with, as well as being the place where he said he found the record. Some places in that area also have similar names to the places in the book, which helps solidify my connection between these two. Specifically, I place Zarahemla as encompassing the area of New York due to its proximity to a narrow neck, bodies of water being divided by a river, and having other geographical barriers in the east and the south. Pennsylvania is where I have chosen the land of Nephi to be, as it is south of Zarahemla. The Lamanites encompass a larger territory, which I view as being from Virginia to Ohio, as it neighbors the Nephites, has access to the Narrow Neck, and between them and the Nephites would be the cities of the Nephite dissenters. Finally, the land desolation, which is described as being totally north, is placed in Canada, which would have been known to Joseph as the land north of his own, and which bears more similar locations. The timeline of the mod focuses on the period between 279 BC, when the Nephites were first destroyed and moved to Zarahemla, all the way to around 32 AD, when they were destroyed again and their church was reformed. This is about 311 years, which is 66 years short of a full EU4 game. Some events may be added before or after to extend the timeline, or the lore of the mod will leave off on an open end, and the colonial nations may be set loose upon them. The nation of the Nephites will temporarily exist as a single entity, but will later be occupied by the Lamanites. The nation of Zarahemla will be north of it, and over the course of the game will expand to have provisional cities in the east and in the north. The Lamanites are implied to be a less monolithic people, occasionally fighting between themselves. It may be possible to designate multiple Lamanite entities as subjects of each other, which nonetheless fight the Nephites as a whole. Occasionally, states independent from all three may form, and Nephite dissenters may defect to their own communities before joining the Lamanites. Towards the end of the game, Zarahemla will shatter into different houses, as in the book, the murder of the chief judge causes them to divide among family ties and clans. The various cities which are named in the book currently outnumber the tiles available in that area. The upcoming 1.31 patch, which includes an overhaul to that area, among others, may see more provinces added. If this is not the case, or they are not enough, I may have to create my own or reduce the number of locations implemented from the book. New states and areas may also have to be defined and provinces bound to them. The Nephites will primarily follow the Jewish religion, but at the end of the mod may turn Reformed Christian to represent Christ's reformation of their church. The Lamanites may follow some of the available in-game faiths, as they are not clearly defined in the book. They may follow Totemist, derived from their belief in a great spirit but not human sacrifice, which is also receiving an update in 1.31. Nahuatl, derived from descriptions of human sacrifice but not a great spirit, and is generally more powerful than Totemist. Or Inti or Mayan, which are similar to Nahuatl but easier to play. Periods of heretical preaching and may be represented by simple province modifiers affecting unrest and religious unity. When it comes to in-game cultures, each culture is a part of a culture group, and nations of a specific culture will prefer their own culture and others of their same group over those of a different group. As it relates to this mod, I'm not sure whether or not to have a single culture group, which includes the Nephites, Lamanites, and Mulekites, or to have three groups which include all of the smaller groups that are described in the book. Government structure in EU4 works based on reform tiers that differ between government classes and specific countries. The countries of this mod may follow some of the standard government tiers in the game, and Zarahemla may transition into a generic republic, or I can make a unique system of chief judges as described in the book. As far as the Lamanites go, I will need to look into what is available for them, as they are a bit complicated. The Nephites are said to have produced things of gold, silver, iron, copper, and brass, fine wood, steel, silk, and other fabrics, and farmed cows, sheep, oxen, horses, donkeys, goats, wheat, barley, and other old world grains, and as well as pressed wine. Many of these things exist as province trade goods in-game, and so I can set the provinces of the Nephite and Zarahemla nations to produce a mix of gold, iron, copper, silk, fabric, wool, livestock, and wine. The Lamanites are said to be lazy and bloodthirsty, lacking the will to smelt ore or to farm, and so instead moved around in tents and hunted. I view this as a description of a nomadic society, and so the trade goods for them will primarily be fur and fish. But as the game goes on, this may extend to wool, livestock, and whatever of the Nephite lands they'll occupy produces. This is because in the book they are later described as cultivating sheep and horses, and building palaces and more complex permanent structures. Trade is not a significant part of the societies in the book, so its inclusion in the game will be reserved for simple events that grant trade buffs during that time that the Nephites and Lamanites experienced a period of peace. Technology develops in three areas in the game: administration, diplomacy, and military. Around 30 levels are available to each category, so if I were to make a unique technology group for these nations, I'd have to define 90 different technologies and their benefits. I can make this process easier by modeling them after some existing technology groups, like the Nomad group, and renaming the various technologies to some titles alluding to things described in the book. However, there isn't as much to go on, so I may have to just give them Mesoamerican, Andean, or North American technology. Two of the primary ways that history is represented in EU4 are through scripted events and mission trees. Scripted events are pop-ups that represent historical events and trigger based on a set of preconditions and yield different effects. You may be presented with multiple options for how to react to the event, which change the event's effects. Mission trees are sets of progressing goals that you can achieve for your country that give benefits upon completion and unlock further goals. Over the course of the campaign, more rewards are unlocked that reflect the development and success of your country. Both events and mission trees that describe things in the book can help immerse the campaign into its world. Specific wars are described in the book and for the most part can be realistically implemented into the game through events. However, most of the wars in EU4 happen differently from history, and the AI will declare them at any point if it feels that it benefits them. This can interfere with the natural progression of the campaign and grow out of control if one nation has some sort of special advantage over the other. Balancing measures will need to be taken to prevent this. Revolts and separatist movements can also easily be implemented, but are usually weak in the game. Certain steps can be taken to balance wars and revolts in this mod. There's many other things that this mod can encompass, but I'll end off on graphics and national ideas. I have some ideas for unit models that differentiate the Nephites by their beautiful white skin from that of the Lamanites with their accursed dark skin. I will also be able to take creative liberties to design national emblems for each of these different countries. I've chosen the national colors, which will generally apply to each of the countries: blue for Zarahemla, orange or tan for the land of Nephi, and variations of brown or green for the Lamanite nations. National ideas are also one of the ways that EU4 makes gameplay unique for different countries by giving specific benefits to a country based on how developed they are, which favors certain styles of gameplay. Eastern hordes, for example, usually have national ideas that grant benefits to cavalry combat and rapid expansion. This may be a means by which I can point these different societies in different directions that set them apart in the same way that they are described in the book. The Nephites having a more productive and defensive aspect, and the Lamanites having more manpower and ferocity in their combat. Thank you for showing interest in the view of the Hebrews. If you have any thoughts on my project or want to contribute some ideas, leave a comment or join the Discord server for this mod. Thank you again, and you all have a wonderful day.